Hello everybody, welcome back to day 5 of Getting Through the Holidays live stream here from transCODES in Colorado, USA. My name is Jona Bryndis and I'm your energy coach and energy healer, reflecting on current energies here every day during the holidays. I hope this series of live broadcasts is inspiring for you. The reason why I'm doing this is because I'm in touch with all of you guys, energetically sensitives and empaths, and this is my job. And of course, I work when other people don't work. So for me, this is prime time working hours here during the holidays. But regardless, I hope that you guys have or having a wonderful Christmas experience or any other holidays that you're celebrating. We will be looking or reflecting on energies that are coming in since the last 24 hours, I'd say, then how to deal with them. I'll give a little bit of intro, and then I'll be reflecting on the cryptocurrency, the Bitcoin market as a special service, and I also explain why, because I see this as a big part of the manifestation of the shift that is happening in our society right now. And then I'm excited to I reinvited Roger Schwartz from recoveryourheart.com to be my panel guest here today, talking about how to deal with all these situations, conflict situations, maybe with other people here gathering today, yesterday, and the following days, how to move into this a more peaceful, more collaborative way of dealing with other people. And yesterday we had Shoshana here who was pointing out how important it is to stay present, and also how communication plays into this. So Roger and I will be talking about this, how we can maybe reconcile, how we can be less righteous, how we can be less positionalized. But not to forget, the reason why we do this here is for you to comment and for you to ask questions, all right? So you have 2 energy workers here, and yes, hello from Denmark, Trinidad. Please post us where you're from. This is wonderful to see that the whole world is listening to this. Of course, not in numbers, but at least in representations. This reminds me actually on a little side comment here. You know, a lot of people, a lot of us empaths, light workers, energy healers, energetically sensitives, have these deep thoughts, and lately that, of course, has been a theme, you know, to go into deeper connection. Hi, California. So we often feel like we have to save the world, or we have to convince others that there's stuff going on, or we have to make them see, you know, those kind of notions. And this is a big ego trap for us energetically sensitives. And I talked about this in the past a little bit. This is also kind of faded in a way, because when you pick up on things before others do, it feels like you're in the know, but you can't really place it yet. And so the way you're trying to express it may be a little weird, maybe also a little projective, maybe a little forceful, maybe you're actually trying to push this onto others. And this is something that many energetically sensitives have experienced in the past, you know, this ridicule because of the things that you are experiencing or that you are communicating. And so oftentimes, you know, we kind of give up on that, or we just go into a form of superiority and kind of feel like, they're just not getting it. This is you know, as much as I understand it, and I've been there, trust me, this is a really big problem for your personal growth and for your personal inner peace, because as long as you think that others need to know something, or that others need to be healed, or others need to broaden their horizon, your energy will have this sort of positionalized and polarized nature, which will automatically trigger some kind of fight or flight response in others. And this is the nature of projecting our energies. And we talked about a little bit about how problematic it can be when we are with others, and how we feel like we're absorbing energies from others. And I mentioned just on the side note, well, this depends also on how much we project our energies out there. So I want you guys to understand that one of the major traps for empaths is that they try to convince others, that they try to bring this, bring the light into the world, if you will. This is not our job, okay? Our job is to be the light. Our job is to become it. Hey, Australia! Our job is to become these pillars of light, that help people to find, a place, a person, a space, a field, where they can go into safety, where they can go, where they can find this space, where they can find someone, at least someone, namely you, who is able to be present, who is able to stay in the heart. And this is particularly important for the next year. We are at the doorstep of an entire restructuring of our society. And I don't want to scare you. I don't mean this in a negative way. This is a positive development. But the problem with this is that, these are things that have been coming in for you for ages. Remember 2012 and all the scare of like the world never going to be the same as it was before. And then people like, that didn't happen. Well, guess what? It did. It did happen. And we are in the midst of this massive shift, this massive transformation. And we have been the ones that have been witnessing this all along. Some of you have been around this self-consciousness, self-awareness, self-help, self-healing, esoteric, new age corner for decades. This time that is evolving right now is the time why you had to go through all of this. Okay? So now don't blow it up by going into confrontation. Go into peace. Don't polarize. Don't just use the old paradigm, of righteousness and dog eats dog and winner and my team, your team, to propagate, this new energetic or vibratory level that we're entering in. You have to go through this shift as well. And what this means is that you need to learn how to reframe. And this is a little bit of mental work as well, and communicational work. This has a lot to do with how we put ourselves out there. And one of the things that came forward here these last 24 hours, working intensely with the marathon, the transmission marathon that we had going on, was like looking at our own shadow aspects and looking at some of our transgressions in the past and how they can actually pull us into this righteousness or into this polarization, into this judgment about ourselves as well. So it's very important to understand this energy that wants to come in, which feels like forgiveness. But it is not a givingness. It's not like the forgiveness that you give to others. That would lead to righteousness because that comes from an elevated place. It is the forgiveness that you can feel within yourself for whatever it is, that you've done in the past that you've said 5 minutes ago. and to reconcile with yourself from deep within. And that puts you into this place where you don't have to project anything. You don't have to present the light or put, the light onto things for others. All you've got to do is to become it. And there is a peace in that, because it puts you in this consolidated place of knowingness. All right? And that will attract people to you. And they will, come to you to just be in your presence or ask you things. So it is the softer feminine energy that wants to reconcile with the assertive, more polarized masculine energy, to get to this place of reconciliation from within and with the outer world. That's an energy that is coming in very strongly here in the last couple of days. And on a physical level, how this felt today, I don't know if you picked up on this as well. Please comment. I'm reading your comments here as I'm speaking. I'd say there was a huge tiredness that came over all of us, like this total release of tension. And I would be surprised if many of you had to take long naps today, okay? So this build-up that we've been observing all these previous days, has come to, this grounding place of leveling out a bit. And many of you may have also had headaches. Temple pressure was really strong today. And I feel maybe like your stomach area feels a little weak. These are part of energetic sensations in combination, of course, with food choices, drink choices, maybe not drinking enough water. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be drinking water here right now, because I've started looking at the energies of next week, and there's a lot of kidney stuff that may act up. So lower back things were there today as well. These are things. Yes, a long nap. Please comment how you guys perceive the energies of today. But it was like a real shift into letting go of this tension, and not necessarily accompanied with a lot of external releases. But this is the energy that is coming in right now with reconciliation and with adjusting to shift. So here we have this now, and now we are in the presence of maybe a lot of people, or the presence of a lot of information. Yes, very contemplative today, Brian. Yeah. And you mentioned the 6, Brian, in your comment. Just for the listeners, what this means is this, our 6th chakra, our inner vision, our third eye, so to speak, has been activated massively over the last 2 days. And this is something I've been or had been forecasting for weeks. It's this 6th and 7th chakra. So really connecting with your inner vision, with your inner knowing, and bringing this into a larger perspective. And I would say this is probably the most characteristic from an energy work standpoint of these days. Go into your inner knowing, and don't shy away from letting go of all your assumptions. Remember yesterday I talked about what assuming does to us, to you and I, Yes, no assumptions, guys. Go in your inner knowing. And with Roger here in a couple of minutes, I'll be talking about how information processing can help us to adjust, to shift, and how the communicational aspect of that is an important part of bringing this into expression. So it's not enough to just have all these inner visionary or this inner knowing stuff. It's also important to understand how to bring this into the outer world, but without stepping on other people's toes. And those of you who are perhaps going through some of this family stuff that we've announced on the first day, with in-laws or with, other parts of the family who are very judgmental, or who you perceive as very judgmental, very positionalized, and it's all about teams. And there's so much going on in the world right now politically, that, brings up these confrontational discussions about, religion, politics, and so forth. And I want you to set this aside here for a minute and just really see that, connect with this higher knowing in you, that these are times of shift, major shift for this world. And yes, this does trigger positionalities and righteousness in people because it's scary, because it's uncertain. And we talked about, how our main coping mechanisms can get triggered when things get a little scary. All right, so I want you to really go within and understand that for most people, this is really, really challenging. Okay, and as an empath, you have to let go of your judgment. The fact that 9 out of 10 people do not see the world like you do does not make these people bad people or evil or whatever, agents of the matrix. Yes, they are, but they don't know. It's unconscious, and it's a form. There's a form of innocence in that until a person wakes up. And this awakening process is what we call the shift. Okay? And that's when we get to this place of having to make a choice. Are we going to stay ignorant, or are we going to go with this shift? And I'm going to talk to Roger about this here in a few minutes, how we can go with the shift. But before I get there, yes, more from Australia, Illinois. Yes, confirming, Annette, confirming the stomach issues. Yes, this is mostly related to third chakra stuff, to inner resistance. And if you feel maybe triggered a little bit, by your family or friends that you have been socialized with, or just the, the news that are around, then, go into inner peace, try to calm this down. I'm going to be talking about how to shift our energies here as energy tip at the end. But one thing that really helps is sleeping and drinking more water. Okay. So how does this relate to the crypto market? Very much so, actually, very much so. So we've had this massive up and down here in these last days, like crash, as many people called it. That's positionalized. All right. So just because there was a correction doesn't mean that this is the end of the crypto market. That would be like a black and white thinking. And we talked about this yesterday, where this can get us. No, what has happened is, whatever triggered it, we talked about that yesterday, is that there was a shift. So there is a something that we expected didn't happen, and that is that a lot of people will be moving in to the cryptos over the Christmas time, because something happened that really sort of triggered the uncertainty there. So people pulled out, made a lot of losses, and that's created a little bit of a slowing down, a delay of that process. But this doesn't mean that the crypto market is going down. Quite frankly, guys, this is nothing you could ever stop. Okay, this is a major part of this restructuring that is happening here. But it has delayed the onset a little bit. And those of you who are already crypto investors or traders can see this. So there was a shift from the main the big four, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, into altcoins, meaning everything else pretty much. And this is a sign that there's not as much newbies coming in or new investors as there's existing investors. So existing investors like yourselves, and maybe even those of you who have trading as a strategy here to link into abundance, got a really clear buying signal yesterday. This is Christmas shopping. This is like Black Friday for those of us who trade and who have the information already how to do this. Now, those of you who don't, and again here, for those of you, the Wild West assessment is still intact, is still in play. If you don't inform yourself, don't go in there. I mean, it's okay to open up a Bitcoin wallet and to get some Bitcoin, even though the price has had a correction. But, you know, Bitcoin is still the currency where everybody kind of lands on, okay? And this is sort of the horse that pulls the whole thing, okay? In itself, you know, Bitcoin is very bullish, okay? You can't stop it because it has sort of created the foundation for this whole new technology coming in. Hey, London. So, you know, you're not making a mistake there. And those of us who've been in the crypto market for a while know this. It's all about hodling, which means basically, you know, you get your investment, you sit on it, and you know that you're going to be all right, and you're going to be you're going to have massive rates of investment if you just sit there for a year or two. All right. Things have to be evaluated, of course, frequently. And I've announced this already here for my frequent listeners that about in 6 months from now, we're going to see another shift. And that is the shift into more user-friendly, more safe, and more regulated software that will make it a little easier for us to trust in the whole crypto market. Those of you who are already in the market still belong to the group of pioneers, you know, the 1.5% of the population that even knows what Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies are. Okay, so the buying pressure of the early adopters, that's what you're looking at coming in now massively. And this will show here in the beginning of January. No way to stop this. But what do you have to do if you want to participate in this shift? Okay, you have to inform yourself. You have to learn how to go into the self-responsible mode. You cannot expect others to provide this to you. You have to be proactive, and you have to go out there and spend hours on listening to YouTubers, you know, go into courses, investment courses, cryptocurrency courses, or listen to energy updates like my own, you know, who give a little bit of updates. There's also something for those of you maybe who can already understand sort of the crypto lingo that I strongly recommend, and that is Cliff High's crypto update, crypto report every month. It's called the website is called halfpasthuman.com. He's just released the crypto report for this month. And, you know, one of the reasons why I love Cliff High so much is because he does the same thing as I do. He just does this with the use of software technology. He reads out the internet of what he calls predictive language, meaning that he uses basically the same paradigm that I do, and that is that we all precognitive. That we all have these abilities, that we pick up on energies, that we pick up on these things. We just may not be aware of it. So I help you to train that ability. And Cliff reads it out in the internet and produces reports and forecasts based on, you know, the linguistics, based on the use of words. It's a very, very, very smart and very cool system. And it reminds me very much on how I come up with my energy reports. Same thing, except for, of course, he does it a little more objectively by reading out the internet. I'm doing this by reading out energetically sensitives and empaths, and by working with them in energy sessions and energy coaching sessions and so forth. So I just work with maybe 100, 200 people a week. He reads out the internet part, but I think in combination, these two perspectives on the same thing are very, very cool. Yes, so self-responsibility is the theme of the year 2018, and you know, like going with the shift and gaining information and educating yourself. You're not going to get the info presented that you need, you know, that will guide you from the outside. You know, that is fake news. All right. You're going to have to go into this proactive stance and really plan out how you're going to, reconcile some of that inner knowing that you have with some of the outer information. And this is my keyword here for bringing in Roger Schwartz. Roger, I hope you're ready. I'm going to call you right now on Skype, and then hope that everything works out with the software here. I'm going to put your picture up. Roger, you there? I can hear your mouse click.
Yeah, 1 second. I have to mute you.
Yes.
So the sound is correct. Okay.
Awesome.
I think we're okay.
Roger, I mean, people know you already, and I just sort of said that part of, we were just talking about, like gaining information, being proactive about learning, and, adapting to this shift, also to the technological shift that is about to come. And I said, this is my keyword for you. Okay. And the reason why I said this, Roger, is, you are of the generation that usually represents a little bit of the apprehension with new technological developments. Okay. And I want to just point out that, you have, if that's okay with you, that you have been spending lots of time in not only training your energy, learning about your energy, becoming an energy worker, an energy healer, helping other people, but also adapting to the technology, not just the energy work technology, but also the computer, the software type of technology, and informing you about the crypto market, and really diving into this and seeing the opportunity in this. And Roger, would you share with us just some of your reflections on that, like how you even, I mean, what did it mean to you? What did you had to let go in order to get to this place where you feel somewhat confident navigating through the crypto world? How did this go for you? Would you just like to share this with us?
It actually started with quite a bit of struggle. I spent when I first got into it, I spent probably 8 hours just opening up a couple accounts and making a trade or two. And then I let that sit for quite a while. But over time, listening to you, I realized what potential this has, and it's going to take, it's just going to be the new way of things. So I've been spending a lot of time. I actually spent most of my time off this holiday studying up on it. And I've done some trading. I've got plenty of access to sites now, so I'm gaining a lot of confidence, and I feel really good about it. I'm in a good position.
What did it originally, like when you first started? What did it trigger in you? I mean, I don't mind. I don't know if you mind sharing, your age.
No, it was just overwhelm. So much information. It was all new. Setting up the new accounts and everything. I actually work on a computer every day. And I'm in the construction industry, so I am used to being overloaded with information, and I have a lot of resistance to that. It's just too much for the mind to deal with most of the time. And this was the same thing with the getting into the cryptos, but I was very persistent and quite proud of myself, actually, because I did.
So am I. And especially considering, that this is not anything that you do professionally. I mean, this is would you like sharing with us, your attitude, towards these new technologies, and also sort of from an investment standpoint, why are you doing this? What is how do you see, and we're just picking the crypto market right now as a representation of this new energy, but how do you see this shift, like for you?
Well, for me, it's like it's the manifestation that I've been working toward in the energy work for some years now. So there's unlimited amount of abundance here at the time, and I'm looking to provide a source of income so I can do the energy work and not have to work my full-time job that I have now. That's what my goal is. But it's really cool that, a lot of the world is already shifting to this open source, where the records can't be modified, and it's just all public information. It's very cool.
So for you, if I get this right, the crypto world is sort of a vehicle. It's a vehicle that you recognize as sort of new technology that will bring you closer to your goal. Kind of like, maybe 100 years ago when cars first became sort of available. And I mean,
yes, right now it's actually like unlimited abundance is how I see it.
How do you deal with those ups and downs in the market? How do you deal with people, the haters and all that? What do you do? Like, do you tell everybody, oh, you got to get into cryptos and you got to do this? What I talked about earlier, we've got to convince everybody that this is it. Or
I started out that way, actually.
How did that go for you?
Yeah, this is with a lot of things that I do. When I started energy work, I was talking a lot about it. And the same thing with this, but what I realized that I can feel the resistance very early on and see the struggle that's involved, and I'm trying to project my stuff. So I just back away. It's not up to me to determine what another person is here to experience. Right. And everybody lives in peace if we allow everyone to go their own way.
So we're just so that we can get into the theme of the day here, which has to do with, going with the shift, but also reconciling some of the maybe some of the mistakes we've done in the past, or some of the things that did not go so well. What were some of your first experiences, Roger, when you were like all excited about the cryptos and you shared this with everybody?
Well, first there was interest, then I started noticing the resistance right away, and then people just kind of shut you out. So, then I just become quiet. I mean, everything continues to build in there, and
yeah. So
it's kind of hard to sit there though, contain it all. But
what happens is when we are too forceful in our excitement, in our inspiration, what happens is that people experience us sort of as believers, and it triggers this like, oh, this is Roger, the crypto guy. So it triggers this labeling and this identification, but also like all the prejudices maybe that people have. So
threatens their own beliefs.
Yes.
Status quo, yeah.
But when we talk about things in a too forceful way, and as energetically sensitives, we know what it's like to be in a room with someone who's really loud, who's really projective. If we project our energy too much, regardless of what it is, whether it's our spiritual, metaphysical beliefs, or whether it's politics or whatever, if we project this out too much, then we trigger polarity in other people, and that makes them, either fight it, run away from it, or just don't say anything. So
you all as you go. It's very uncomfortable being in the receiving position. I understand that. So
that's one of the cool things as energetically sensitives and empaths, is that we can relate to what it feels like, because we we typically see ourselves as victims of that, right? But
yes.
We don't realize how much we are doing this ourselves.
Yeah, you have to stop and think, look at what you're doing occasionally. But so, I went on with that for a little bit, and then I just put it an offer. I says, if you're interested, let me know. I'll help you set up, and it won't take that long. Right. Otherwise, that's the end of it. I'm going to move on my way, and we'll all be happy, right?
So let's talk about dealing with, those kind of mishaps, okay, in the practical, and relate this to, like, say, conversations that are going on. Maybe for those of you listening here or watching the recording right now, with relatives, with in-laws, with friends and family, loved ones. What happens if your energy goes a little too far out there and projects too much, and you experience this this negative response, which then maybe leads you to, shutting down, being disappointed, or like we talked yesterday with Shoshana, like just going into this like a lonely place of grieving or feeling unloved. How do you, as in your experience as energy coach, Roger, and also of course in your experience with dealing with ego addictions, we talked about this on day 2. How do you recommend people to deal with their past transgressions? Transgressions is a word that came in, this last 24 hours. So more like, mishaps, or this didn't go really well. How do you deal with these things? Like, how do you internally, and then of course externally, how do you reconcile?
Well, I don't have many of those anymore. It's pretty much all related to how you feel about yourself. What is your need? How much do you need to push your own beliefs on someone else or convince them of something? The more you feel okay within, the less that matters, and you can stay in a place of peace regardless of another's reaction.
But how do you get there? I mean, this is the big question for all of us.
Well, this has taken quite a long time.
Give me the one answer. I'm like
an expert on the positionality, duality, judgment, all of those things. I had a period of probably 10 years where I went into isolation. Mm-hmm. By the way, I'm about 2 days behind on the live broadcast. I just listened to day 3 before this one. It was really cool. He brought up some very interesting, insightful things in there. And this was one of them. And that I went into isolation. It started out probably basically all because of fear. Mm-hmm. I wasn't able to meet some of my human needs, right? So I went into a shutdown mode and started to pretty much hate the world.
Yeah.
Disdain toward men and women, anybody that was experiencing any kind of happiness. And it took me, it was a very painful, lonely place. Because I was, go ahead.
Let me pick up on this here real quick, because, today we're talking about righteousness and positionality as well, and how this links in with this place that you just described, where, you have a lot of unmet needs and disappointments, maybe, unmet expectations, and you go into this place of grief, which then turns into sort of resentment, towards the outer world. And if you look at this from a larger perspective, really what it means is that if I can't get it my way, then I'm just gonna, like judge or degrade everything else.
Right.
And this is one of the causes, or one of the things that lead to positionality and polarity, is that, if there's something we cannot get, all right, or something that we need that we cannot get, or something that we cannot express that we need it, all right, this is kind of like where I want to go with this, is like, okay, how can we get better at expressing this to the world, to our loved ones, to the people that matter to us, so that we don't even get into this place. Because once we're in that place, like you said, it's very common, I mean, almost like pre-programmed, this downward spiral that we're in, that we go against the outside world, and we begin to see sort of my team against the rest of the world, or my team, your team, doesn't really matter, if we include other people in our team. But, the question is here, that place that you described, how can a person get out of this place, even while being confronted with other people who are in that place? So anybody who is, overly critical, overly judgmental, overly positionalized, whether it be politics, religions, spirituality, sports, it doesn't matter, okay, has a part of that place that you described in him, because he or she has to defend, has to justify his or her position. And that's a form of degrading everybody else's. All right.
Well, yes, now it's quite simple for me. You have to allow that person to have their position and not let it affect you. I mean, you can give someone a nod in agreement for their position and not take sides, not latch on to any of the energies involved. But I wasn't able to do those kinds of things years ago.
Neither me.
No. Now it's actually quite easy, and I can smile. And it's cool because I can allow people to be what they are, and it's quite all right.
What did it take for you, Roger, to get to that place from this desperate, sort of almost hostile type of place, very positionalized,
well,
to where
honestly,
you are today?
I got very tired of that. It was so painful, I couldn't take it anymore. So I started, years ago, I used to read metaphysical stuff, so I went searching for that on the internet again and found Jeff Casper, his website, and I had a clearing done, and on his website was a link to transCODES. And that changed my entire life, actually. That started the working on the deeper stuff, and brought about a heart opening for me. And then I realized a lot of it had to do with fears that I wasn't able to move through before, and the work started putting me in touch with my heart and improving how I felt about myself. It shifted my perspective, started shifting my perspective on a lot of things. And I started realizing that I was okay just the way I was.
Now, was it always easy, Roger?
Oh, no. The first, I went to 2 weekend back-to-back seminars. The first ones you did, actually, in Florida. And I probably spent, like a week crying. It was amazing. I just, a lot of emotional stuff came up. A lot of it that had been stored for years, I was carrying all this in my stomach. And so it was quite challenging. And I've had to go through a lot of fears. But now, I don't know, I feel so much different about myself. So I'm at a place now where I'm not dependent upon how others react to me or their beliefs being in alignment with mine, so I feel good about myself or anything like that.
Yeah,
this all comes from within now, right?
You work as an energy healer now, so obviously you've somehow mastered to overcome your fears and the discomfort, of facing some of the deeper stuff.
I was thinking about that today. I would isolate before. I had issues with communication since, I don't know, as young as I can remember. People used to react to me like weird. What I would come up with to respond to them or communicate with them was usually didn't seem to be fitting. So I'd get weird looks, and conversations were usually short. So I learned to talk even less, and it wasn't many years ago that I was just very quiet and isolated. I would never be doing something like this. This is quite amazing.
Yes. And this is already the second time you overcome your fears of talking publicly.
When you asked me, so something's shifting. I don't know.
So now this is really cool, though. I mean, I do want to point out, and you've shared this with us on day 2, that you've had a lot of training. Because some of the ways you actually coped with that isolation and that pain, was through alcohol, and you recognized at some point that this is not really getting you anywhere, so you decided to go and join AA and work the 12-step program. And, we don't really have anything to do with the 12-step program. However, from an energetic standpoint, we see a lot of really, really supportive and conducive things in the 12-step program, which is why we've actually developed a program here, the Sacred Self-Healing Program, that incorporates the 12 steps in their energies, not so much in their content, but in their energies. And one of the things that, in working with hundreds of people and, through these steps is the willingness to make amends. That, to me, personally, was probably the biggest healing step that I've ever done. It's very proactive, and it has to come from within, and it taught me a whole new way of dealing with myself and letting go of these hypercritical, self-discriminating, self-berating things, and really embrace the energy of forgiveness. Now, how did this go for you, Roger? Reconciling within yourself, that was the first step, which is what you shared with us here. But how did this go when you went into the deeper part of that that involved other people and reconciling with others? How did this go for you?
Well, it went quite well, but overall it was what it was an acceptance of my being human, being a human. I mean, my self-image, my self-worth was so low that I needed to be something beyond human. I actually looked at this experience, being human, as a weakness. I saw humans as very weak. And so I always felt like I needed to be something above that. And so what was required was for me to accept that I was human. It was okay to make these mistakes. I mean, everybody does it every day. And now I can see it helps to change your perspective toward others also. There's less judgment.
So we changed the attitude towards ourselves and move into more acceptance, and all of a sudden other people.
I mean, it helps. You can align to compassion and all that easier that way also. Once you accept your own, I don't know if you want to call them flaws.
So let's talk about how to reconcile with those flaws, with our transgressions of the past, and how to reconcile first within and then with others. What is it that you recommend people that come to you, recoveryourheart.com, and work with you, whether there's substance abuse involved in it or not, whether there's codependency involved in it or not? We've already reframed addictions as a sort of a coping of the ego, a way of our ego to deal with, what cannot be reconciled within. All right, so let's just put this aside. What do you recommend people how to approach the outer reconciliation with others?
Well, I often try and get someone to see from another's point of view, perspective, and look back on their own life. And see that they're capable of most everything also, that anyone else is, right? Depending on the choice and the circumstances at the time. We're all capable of doing pretty much everything that is done by any human, given the right circumstances. We're all, I should say, at least most of us are doing the best we can at all times, regardless of how it looks. According to what we know, according to where we're at that particular moment. So
what I hear you say is, like, first of all, a reframing, like opening up for the horizon and really using some of your empathy and compassion to see where a person is at, right?
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
And also in regards to your own past transgressions, where you were at the time, of maybe, making not so positive choices, or
That's a
making
good way to
mistakes.
describe it.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to stay positive in my vocabulary
So, yeah,
here.
I did a lot of nasty stuff, right, in my past, and I hurt a lot of people. So they weren't things I wanted to do at the time, but they were the things that I did at the time. But I was doing the best that I could.
So you see now that this was your limitation at the time, and you can see this now, right?
Yes.
And that helps you to reconcile within. Now, how did you approach the process of reconciling with these people? I mean, that you've hurt. How would you suggest to someone, to go about, creating a clean slate?
Well, I had a very positive reaction from pretty much everyone. This doesn't happen for everybody, though. There's, there's cases where some people just won't offer you forgiveness, or allow that process.
Be practical, Roger. How does that? I mean, how did you approach this? Did you give him a call, or send him an email, or text, or what did you do?
To the people that I could, I went directly face to face.
Okay.
Yes.
And what did you say?
I apologized for my behavior or whatever I had done, the pain I'd caused, and I got a variety of reactions. Some says, "What are you talking about?" It's like,
right.
And some people understood and were very, very forgiving and compassionate immediately. I mean, they understood what I had been going through, but. So it went pretty well for me.
And let's not forget to mention that these were things that happened maybe 20 or 30 years ago, right? I mean, it wasn't like
40, yeah,
right,
a long time ago. I cleared those things up. The majority of those things shortly after I went to rehab.
So there's an aspect that frees up and kind of helps us to heal in the moment of doing that, even though
this is amazing. Yes, even though you talk about energetic ties and binds.
Yeah. Even though
things. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, even though it requires us to overcome our fears, our discomfort, and of course, also, the fear of judgment that we may still have. So it doesn't matter how well we are understanding that, maybe at the time I didn't have any better choices. I didn't have any better opportunities because I couldn't see it before, but that doesn't mean that other people have the same kind of compassion for us. So, right? I mean, there's a little bit of fear.
Some people will kick you right out,
So there's this part that works immediately for us, and then there's also
it frees up. Yes, it frees us up instantly, almost regardless.
And then there's also a part that frees up something in the other. Have you noticed that too, Roger?
There's a lot more. Actually, the communications improved with family members and all. They became much more open to me.
There is a huge power in owning and admitting to, let's say, just things that we messed up. Okay? Yeah. I mean, I don't want to get, the word transgression sounds so like religious or whatever. I don't want to bring in the notion of sin, because that's something that a lot of us here have to reconcile on a deeper spiritual level, that we feel like flawed and sinful as humans to begin with. But everything we're talking about here is also something that leads us to understand that there are limitations that we have, whether it be as a human, whether it be as a collective, or whether it be as jona bryndis or Roger Schwartz. Those are limitations that we have given the circumstances, giving the choices at the time. And for us to move forward in this more peaceful and more synergetic, harmonious way, it is very, very important for us to go into peace with our past, and also to go into peace with the things that didn't go that well. I mean, how many people do we know, who just sort of point out all the cool things about them and how they made this and that good stuff, and how successful they are. In the crypto market, you see this a lot, people who are bragging about how much they've made. But do they ever tell you when they really screwed up? when, it was awfully quiet here in the crypto world the last 3 days when things went down, because nobody wanted to talk about, what happens when things go south. So there's a huge power in not only overcoming this in the moment and releasing some of these binds and ties that are created between people when there's hurt, when there's pain, when there's mess up, but also, in allowing us to experience, the freedom that comes out of that for moving forward. And I want to go as far as really recommending you guys to implement this as a daily training method, to reconcile on a daily basis with yourself, making amends with yourself, going into this self-reflective place and say, well, without judgment though, without beating yourself up, but into this place where you say, okay, this didn't go that well. This created a lot of pain in me and maybe in the other person. And maybe I need to do something about that. And it empowers us to go into solutions and also to find higher vibratory solutions. Now, here is a very important question for us, Roger. Cindy's asking, how about reconciling with people that have passed or moved on? And you hinted at that a little bit in the beginning when you said that, reconciliation or this process of making amends with other people may not always be possible. All right. So this is where energy work comes in. So what do we do with people who don't live anymore, or who, where it's maybe even unsafe, to contact them? What do you do, or what do you recommend people?
Well, you don't want to, if you're going to cause any damage, or inflict any pain on anyone by making amends so you feel better, you want to stay away from that. Yeah. Don't ever go there. It's you don't have the right to infringe on someone else to find your own peace. So, and people that have passed on, you set the intent. You could write a letter, perhaps, or something like this. I mean, even though they've passed, there's an understanding that's communicated.
Yes, and even utilizing energy work, because energy work can bypass, physicality to a degree, because we can connect and we can do this reconciliation on an etheric level with other people.
Yeah, we do that quite often, actually, in the sessions. Yes.
How do you recommend the general process to reconcile, to etherically reconcile with other people? Or do you want me to talk about this?
You can. I mean, I've done it energetically during sessions. I do that myself sometimes. You become the observer, like somebody's talked about. Come to the place where you can align to compassion and all, and forgiveness and love and that kind of thing. And those things can be resolved rather quickly.
And you let this go. You consciously let this go. I would say it goes beyond just intention. It's when you do this in a contemplative or meditative or sort of a slightly more sort of transcendental type of state, where you go into the present moment, where you go into your heart center and you contact someone. Okay, contact as in like thinking of them. There's a humbleness in that process, where you basically have to lay it all out on the table, and you say, here, this is what I'm bringing in, and thank you for everything that you have been bringing in. But now I see things differently. Now I, have the broader picture, and I see how maybe I've heard you, you've heard me, but right now I want to let all that go. I want to move on, and I want you to move on. Whatever the thing is that is between two people. But to really go into this humble place and say, I just couldn't see it back then. I just didn't understand it better. And in that soft energy with ourselves, we're actually offering somebody else the same soft energy. And
you're acknowledging their true self also. They're at a higher level and as equal to you.
So there's exactly, yes. And there's a respect that comes with this. So Cindy, the best way to reconcile with someone who's not alive anymore is to go into your heart center, go into a meditative state, make an appointment with yourself, as I say, book a session with yourself where you say, I'm dedicating these next 10, 15 minutes or the meditation session that I have, to sit with a person's energy that I want to reconcile with and offer. This is all you can do. You can offer, your reconciliation. You can offer your respect. You can offer your humbleness, and honor them in this way. You cannot determine or control how they take that. But as you do this etherically, it will have, an effect sort of on the larger, sort of the universal field of information, the holographic field that we are in. And if you may have this sometimes that you can't, or that you don't feel like you can reconcile with a person that is still alive, because it would cause damage, like we said, like Roger said earlier, or it would just stir up too many things, or there's just not the means of communication, and sometimes you simply don't know where a person can be located. Then etheric reconciliation can be a wonderful tool to do this. And this is something that I've done with quite a few of my relations, is you may actually be able to observe a shift in the physical, in the practical. They begin to see you differently. They begin to react to you differently and soften up, because the energy that you're sending them is coming from that place of honor and respect and humbleness. So don't be surprised. This is not woo-woo stuff, guys. If you do this with someone,
trust it.
Yes.
Trust it and just move on. It's very effective, actually.
So, Roger, we're coming to the end here of our show. And what is it that you would recommend to people in this situation where they mess up or where somebody else messes up? How to approach this? In the moment, like say, picture the situation, like you're with your family, you're having these discussions, you're getting into a fight, you say things that you didn't really mean to say. How do you recommend that people react or respond, better say, response ability in these situations?
Yeah, the best is not to get into the situation to start with, obviously.
But I mean, obviously, not communicating at all is not an option.
You can apologize and say, "I understand your point of view." You can support the person. Everyone's got the right to their own beliefs. So acknowledge that. You don't have to admit that you agree with them or anything, but you respect their point of view.
That's, I think, the key here. We don't have to agree with people, but we can respect their point of view. And even if we, get a little maybe riled up or get a bit, positionalized ourselves, we can still go back, right?
Right.
And we can say, hey, what I just said, or, how our conversation went earlier, that didn't come out right. That is not exactly how,
Sorry, I expressed it in that way.
Yeah. Here's a comment that I want to pick up on, Roger. Third Eye is commenting, I only respect people who do respectable things. And this is, I think, something that we all have in us. The more you can respect yourself, and the more you can be, humble and empathetic with yourself, compassionate, the more forgiveness you can have for yourself, the more other people can feel this towards you. So what do you actually read out of a person who is very positionized, who's very opinionated, very judgmental, very critical? What can you read out of these people? Roger, what is it that you've learned here? That when people come across this like a steamroller and like only my opinion is right and I'm, Well,
it's pretty much all ego, and they have some fears or low self-image.
Yeah. Usually, so I just let it be. What they're actually expressing is all the inner conflict that they have not reconciled within.
Yeah. And I think that I've said enough.
Yeah. And Soda is making another comment here, because I said earlier in regards to etheric reconciliation, that this is not woo-woo. He says, I love woo-woo. I'd like to think it is woo-woo. And it's okay to think that because, for many people it is. But for people who do energy work, they realize that these are very practical tools. And when you go into dealing with energies and utilizing them for your practical life, then you will find that they're not as mystical as they appear at first. Things appear mystical to people when they don't know anything about it, when they feel insecure, when they feel uncertain about it. And so the more you inform yourself, the more you train yourself. And again, this is your self-responsibility now. It's probably going to take another 10 years or 20 years until they will teach this in school. All right, so you're going to have to go out and inform yourself. The less insecurities you'll have, the less inner conflicts you'll have, and the less woo-woo things will become, because it's not that mystical after all.
And the less other people's conflicts will affect you.
Yes.
They won't matter anymore.
Yeah, so, and you bring in the word science, and most of you know this, that I actually have a scientific background, and I would love to be able to call this science, but I know it's not, and the only reason why is because science, at least the scientific paradigm that we're having at the moment, is based on objectivity, is based on a paradigm that cannot apply to energy work, because energy work is based on subjectivity and linking into a greater field than just objectivity. And so I'll have to be honest here and clear about this, that energy work is not a science. However, it is a new paradigm of science, and this is, I think those are good closing words for, the subject. I do want to point out that etheric reconciliation, which is the energy work tip here for us today. So if you can't do it in words, do it at least within, dedicate your energy, ask for permission, be humble and respectful. And if you want to learn how to do this specifically for things, then come to transCODES or go to recoveryourheart.com and book sessions with either Roger or I. Here at transCODES, we have actually learning sessions, like personal energy training sessions that teach you how to do this. Which reminds me, by the way, this weekend we're going to have a big training intensive coming up for those of you who are interested in learning how to navigate your energies in the inner world, the outer world, and dimensions. A very, very cool, intensive, super advanced training methods and modalities that I teach there. So if you don't have any questions, I'm looking at...
One more thing, Jona.
Yes,
if anyone's local or near St. Petersburg, Florida, we have Sacred Self-Healing meetings here now. I have the next 4 booked for the 1st and 3rd Fridays of January and February. You can email me to get more details. There's no charge to attend the meetings. Donations are accepted to help cover the space, and it would be great to have anyone.
Awesome, Roger, that you mentioned this. So Roger is one of the energy workers here who has taken all this work a step forward and is actually offering meetings, sort of discussion / meditation groups for like-minded people who are willing to dive into the deeper aspects of self and don't shy away from overcoming their fears and their ego's comfort zone, and actually work with these deeper aspects. And it's free. And thank you, Roger, for bringing this up. I'm going to put up the link. Can people sign up for it, or how does this work?
Well, there's usually invite goes out on Facebook, and you can email me. I appreciate getting the emails, letting me know you'd like to come.
Awesome. And I'm going to put up the link for your Facebook and for your website, and also the location, the Meta Center in St. Petersburg, Florida. And we're going to see a lot more of these self-help groups come up. Jeff and I are starting one here in Evergreen, Colorado. There's a lot of people around the world who are following our example. So this is something that I find really exciting for 2018 because, as you know, I've been talking about community, about collaboration, synergy with like-minded people. This has to happen in the physical as well. So yes, if you are interested in how to start such a local group, or first of all, of course, how to attend to them and learn, the ways that in which this can work, then please contact me or Roger. Okay, awesome.
Thank you, Jona, for inviting me.
And
thank you, everyone, for joining.
Yes, we had a great
Very
audience. Cool. The majority of the audience, as you can see, is actually watching the videos after the fact. But please comment underneath the video, and if you don't have access to that, then that's because you don't have a YouTube account. I said that yesterday. You have to have a YouTube account, but it's the same as Google, so you can just transfer that over. And then you'll be able to comment. So please comment and continue asking questions, guys. And yes, Roger, thank you so much for coming, for being such a great example, for overcoming fears and coming from a place of peace instead of polarization.
And my pleasure.
Tomorrow we're going to have Rebecca here, Rebecca Lee from Australia, with a very exciting project. I'm not going to say what it is, but I can already share with you that the theme for tomorrow will be dealing with karmic relationships, dealing with in-laws, dealing with relatives, and what are these karmic binds, or these binds that are between us. And Rebecca has a lot of expertise there. She's a life coach and energy worker, has a phenomenal project and program going. So tomorrow, Rebecca Lee on karmic relationships, and that at 7 p.m. Denver time again. So thank you, everybody.
That sounds really cool.
Yes, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you, Roger. Thank you, everybody. And see you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye-bye.